Welcome to Fight the Good Fight Club, the podcast about the relentless pursuit of a life and relationships filled with purpose, love, joy, and peace. If you're ready to get real and dig deep, then you're ready for Fight the Good Fight Club.
Hi, welcome to Fight the Good Fight Club. I'm Marcel Pope.
And I'm Cynthia Cintron.
And we are your hosts today. The purpose of this podcast is to share conversations inspired by A Course in Miracles. It is a book that consists of three different parts: a text, lessons, and a manual for teachers. We're going to focus on the lessons and one in particular today. And the lesson is on forgiveness. But before we get started, share a little bit of history on why we are starting this. My whole life I've been searching for truth and peace, and I've searched for in many, many places, from books of the mind to the Bible to books on enlightenment and spirituality, and I finally have found what I've always believed: any answer we are searching for to life's questions are within us. It's not in a book. It's not somewhere it's always within each of us. I've always believed that, but I never knew how to find it within me. And so ironically, this book, I've had it for over 30 years. It was given to me in 1991. The one that was given to me was signed by the guy that gave it to me. And each year I would try to start the lessons. There are 365 of them. And I'd get sidetracked, sometimes the second lesson. This went on for 30 years. So last year, I was determined to finish the lessons. And I started and I finished. I did not miss a single lesson. And as it was going through, as the book says, miracles started happening. And what type of miracles? Nothing to do with physical miracles. Didn't get the winning lottery numbers, didn't figure out how to get, a $10 million home on the beach, because that wasn't what I was looking for. The miracles I was looking for was eternal peace within myself, because I know there's peace in each of us, but that's disrupted through life. And that's what I personally was looking for. If you've ever heard that song by U2, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Every time that song came on, I'm like, damn it, I still haven't found what I'm looking for, because I've been looking for this, and finally I found it. And that is the purpose of this podcast. When you find something that you feel is very important to share, then you want to share it. You don't keep it to yourself. And I've been searching for this my whole life. And it just happened to be this book. Back in 2011, I read the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelations. It took me from January 1 of 2011 to February the 5th of 2012. And I still remember a lot of the stories. I wanted to do it for myself, but I still felt I didn't really know what I was looking for. But then I finally started the Course in Miracles, and that brought it all together. And so all of these books that I've read, spiritual books, enlightened books, have helped. But right now, Course in Miracles has really brought it home for me. And so with that in mind, this is probably, looking back, been the most happy year of my life in many ways. And it's because I've been able to let go of a lot of things that have happened that have brought me sadness and loss. And those are the things I really wanted to overcome. And that's why it relates to today's topic of forgiveness. Because you cannot find the peace within yourself unless you've let go of things that grievances, so to speak. Maybe someone's done something to you and you've held on to the anger, the resentment, and then you never let it go. So today's lesson really about forgiveness is not only forgiving, but actually how to forgive. In my own life, I've always thought about things that have happened to me, and I thought people, but when it came down to it, I really didn't. And I just didn't know. I wanted to let things go, but I really didn't know how. And I knew that I hadn't forgiven them because I would think about the person or whatever happened, and I would still feel, a tinge of anger or whatever, and they should pay, karma they'll get their karma. And it's like, to me, you haven't you haven't forgiven if you feel those things. And not for nothing else, when you have that energy in you, you will never have the peace. It's almost like you're craving, let's say you're in a room and it's hot, and you look and there's a heater, and I don't want to be hot, but you don't turn off the heater, but yet you don't want to be hot and you don't want to turn off the heater. You can't have both. So if you want peace and you want happiness and stillness within, you can't hold on to grudges. The only way to get rid of those grudges is to forgive. So you turn down the heat, make it comfortable for yourself, get still by turning off the heat so it's not hot anymore. And but how do you do that? Because invariably, I personally, I've always wanted to not be hot, but I didn't want to turn off the heater. In this analogy, you got to let your grievances go. And I never knew really how to do that or proof to myself that I had done it. And so that's why I think this episode today is probably the most important one. I thought, would it be about love? Would it be about peace? But really, I think in this world, it's really about forgiveness. And a lot of times I have a lot of people, and as it comes down to it, I find myself saying the last couple of years, if I leave today and get hit by a bus, I would want to know that this conversation we had would be the most important one we could have ever had. And I think that's what this episode's about, is forgiveness. And this, I can't imagine a greater conversation we could ever have other than this topic, and why it's so difficult and yet it's so easy. And but it's the hardest thing to do, even though it's so easy. So we're going to talk about how to do that. And so my co-host today, Cynthia, is also my life partner, and she and I have certainly been on a journey together. We both have gone into our past, shared our past, and we've been able to forgive. And I should say we're learning to forgive because it's a work in progress. You say, okay, I forgive that person, but I won't forget. So that's not forgiveness at all. And to use one final analogy, it's like if you like a still pond, if that's representative of and there's and you continually throw rocks in it, or someone else throw a rock in your pond, how to remove that rock so the ripples stop emanating, and whatever that could be. You're trying to eliminate the turbulence so you can have the peace in you. So again, at the intro, the terms relentless pursuit, and I personally feel like I have found it, and it's and to really build upon it. And it is a work in progress, because I find myself sometimes thinking about certain things that have happened from certain people that are still going on, and it's still to continually forgive as they continually do what they do. So anyway, thank you for listening here today. And Cynthia and I are going to share some things together. Cynthia?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Marcel, for having our listeners understand what our premise is and why we're doing this. It is really important for us to, I know for me, for myself, to get on the path to forgiveness within oneself and then share that with your partner. Marcel and I think one of the things that has worked for us in our long relationship is that we recognize the importance of loving ourselves, finding forgiveness within ourselves, handling the business that we each have individually in this life, and then bringing it together so that we can share those parts that grow our relationship. So Marcel explained the journey of forgiveness within himself and the grievances that he's had with people. And we've had many conversations about our individual journeys, and it's really laid such a deep foundation of intimacy and closeness between us. Sometimes it gets a little complicated. Sometimes, we want to judge each other why can't you do this? I remember one time I was going through something. I had a 30-year separation from my family, and families evolve, change, and they go through things. And at this stage in all of our lives, it just seemed to be the right time for the family to come back together. And there were some very deep, deep, painful grievances. I can't imagine that I know anyone, even the best families that I've known, and I've known several that are just beautiful. But there's always stuff that goes on, and there's stuff that you hold on to. You're angry. Somebody didn't apologize. We didn't accept we didn't accept the apology. The person continues to do the same thing over and over again, or we don't have the courage to face the truth, what will happen if we're honest with that person. So there's so many things that cause grievances, grudges, that require forgiveness to be able to really move forward in joyful, fulfilling relationships. And it's really deeply personal, how you get on that journey and how you move through it. And like Marcel was saying, it's almost not really an arrival point. You do get to a point where where you can, and Marcel and I will cover this later, where you may feel that you've arrived at a place of forgiveness, but forgiveness is something that you never just do and you're done for the rest of your life. You check in. It's like getting an oil change. You have to sort of do that tune up, do that oil change, maintain, right?
Correct. Yeah, so you have to practice it on a daily basis. And believe me, within myself, I fail a lot with a lot of these ideas. And but it's a relentless pursuit, a continual being persistent to arrive at what you really want. And for me, it's, I'm in my 50s. I'll be 54 this year. And I'm realizing, what do I want more in this world than anything? Selfishly, I want peace. I want to be okay when I wake up. I don't want the past to cause me any pain or angst or regret. I don't want to have any anxiety or worry about the future. And I have children, and what I hope for them is that if something happened to me and they never heard from me again, God forbid, that this podcast would help them make it through the rest of this crazy world we live in, and that we can navigate once we find the source of strength within ourselves. And it doesn't depend on someone or something or any amount of money, any amount of car, any career, that no matter what comes their way, they will be able to handle it. So this podcast, if they tuned into it, there's really what anybody. And so this few moments we spend together, anybody could tune in and go, wow, that guy's dying breath. That's what he would say. That's what he would say. That this is it, is to forgive.
Yeah.
And with that, you are able to really love and let go.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the emotion, and I know you to know what I see in you, I see in myself, is that it does when there's certain things that you think about, and it just touches and it just reaches so deep. I mean, Marcel's been through some really major life events as well. And for me, I mentioned, the separation in my family. And we did that in stages. My brother's family wanted me to forgive my parents. And that was, again, it was a 30-year separation. And Marcel, my boyfriend, wanted me to forgive my family, and I knew I wasn't in that space yet. There were things that were holding me back. There were issues that I didn't believe were resolved. And I think when I think back on it now, I think that I was afraid of being hurt again, feeling that pain that caused so much just so much pain. I just didn't want to go there again. And I thought, and I had packed it all up. I'd put it away, and it was on a shelf somewhere, and I was really comfy and cozy and happy not dealing with it for years. I just moved beyond it, and I was done. But life changes. My nephew was born. My family, we evolve as human beings, and circumstances dictated that for me, after much thinking and soul searching, that I would take that step towards my parents my father really wanted to reconcile with me. And so we had a phone call. We just had a phone call. And then we had another phone call, and we kept it light. And then we had another phone call, and then I was invited to the house for dinner. Duh.
Your death dinner potentially with the shrimp.
What a mess. So some context for you that puts it. My dad and I. So we, in my adult life, I mean, we hadn't had a relationship. It's just very, very complicated on many levels. But just to, for so that this isn't a 5-hour show episode. My mother, the crux of the issue was really between my mother and I. And my father just got caught in the crossfire. And you all, I'm sure listeners listening are going, oh, yeah, I know. You know how to fight with my sister-in-law, and my brother's caught in the, I haven't talked to my brother forever because my sister, by the way, my sister-in-law is an angel. I love her crazy. And I love my brother too. But so I go to dinner. My mother and I are face to face. We're both really, really strong women. And we sit there. And what we both found out later was that both of us were afraid that we each hated the other one. So neither one of us wanted to let our guard down. So what happened in real time was a total mess. Picture Bambi on the ice. We're having small talk. We're insulting. She's insulting me left and right. Doesn't even realize it. I don't, but she just doesn't know. It's just a mess. We're whatever. So then I go home and decide to do it again because I had committed to my brother and my boyfriend and myself that I was going to give this, that I was going to do this, that I wanted to create an atmosphere, at least that when the family got together, that it would be peaceful. So it took a couple of meetings, and then one day my mother opened the door a little crack, and I opened the door a little crack, and I said to her one of the most frightening things ever. Do you want to be friends, or do you just want to be civil? Because the answer would be horrible, right? It would be, no, I really don't care, which is what she told other family members, again, in protective mode. And for me, I really wanted to be in peace. And I think that this is the crux. Somebody asked me now all these years, all this a year later, how were you able to get on the road? How were you able to forgive? How was your mother able to ask for forgiveness and you accept her apology? And I said that what I really, really believe is that when what you're trying to achieve, when you know your goal, and that goal is greater than anything else that can happen around it, that's where the focus is. And for both my mother and I, the focus was on creating something new and making a wonderful experience for her grandson, my godson nephew. So we were focused on the family. We weren't focused on the fighting that we had done. Mm. So when that happened and we kind of got really, really honest with each other and just, asked each other to put stuff on the table and just had honest conversations. And it was a series of, 8 or 10 conversations that seemed to last for hours and hours. But at the end of the day, I'm sitting here a year later, and my mother's one of my best friends, my Marcel. So much time with my parents, and like my mother said, she said, Cynthia, we mature, we grow, we change, and I want to be in a relationship with you.
That was the bonus you expect, because your mother was the gatekeeper to your father, mm-hmm. and there was a dynamic there, mm-hmm. and so she finally gave, quote, permission for your father to speak with you. Yeah. And then you spoke to him for like 2 minutes, then he goes, here, hands the phone to his wife, which is your mother. And the irony is you and your mother speak. For every 10 minutes you speak, you and your father speak 15 seconds. So, but
he did call me the other day. Yeah, when he wants to talk to me, he actually has to call me separately because my mother and I are on the phone for like an hour just talking about all kinds of stuff. It's crazy. We're so much alike. Yeah. We enjoy each other so much now. it really was. It was a decision to get honest.
Yeah.
It was a decision to forgive. My father asked me before we actually got together. I know, because obviously he was terrified of all of us. It was like World War III in the Cuban household, right? My father said, "Do you have forgiveness in your heart?" And I said, "Yes, I do. If we can get honest, and if we can move forward in a healthy, honest way, yes, absolutely. I'm ready to move forward." And my mother was too. And we just found one thing that was a common ground, and then just started talking and just laid bare. And I think it takes an enormous amount of courage. She was, not accept her, and I'm her daughter. I'm her firstborn, and she's my mother. And we never established a relationship when I was younger, but funny enough, both of us have so much in common, and we look alike. And she was 21 years old, and she made a lot of mistakes. And that's the other thing. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. You have to get humble. You have to dig deep, just like our intro says. I got really humble, and I really put myself in her shoes. Thought, who was I at 21? What did I know? How could she possibly have felt coming to this country, getting married, pregnant, all, within 6 months? It must have been terrifying. And I told her that. I said, "Mom, I could imagine if I was in your shoes, I probably would have been a pretty angry person too."
Thought came to my mind when you were saying that is whatever happens to you is what you know. So you usually project that and perpetuate your experience to whoever. It doesn't matter who it could be, your own daughter. So I have to explain when I said the death. So Cynthia's allergic to seafood. So when we showed up, they had a nice spread, and the center of the spread were these huge jumbo cocktail shrimp. Cynthia goes, "See, she's trying to kill me. And she's not here." And she says, "Try shrimp."
And then she said, except you, Cynthia, because you're allergic to shrimp. She's allergic to shrimp. And it's the centerpiece of the first dinner after 30 years. It's like,
And then, but
she's trying to kill me. I told you she was trying to kill me.
There are other things, and sparing the details and looking at the broad view, there's a lot of stuff that went on when Cynthia was younger.
Yeah.
And that really caused her to, I guess, you ran away as soon as you could and were out on your own. And that's one of the things that drew me to you when I first met you, was that you just were a street fighter. You didn't care. You just knew where you didn't want to be. You took a chance on when you left, and you learned how to fight. You're very street smart, very delicate as well.
Oh.
So that forgiveness aspect.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to do the spoiler alert on what I said about why can't you forgive. So
yeah, I think that's really important, because it brings in, when nothing happens in a bubble in relationships. You may think it does. You may think that grievances that you have with people are separated from your relationship. The reality is that it spills into your life. What happens at work spills into your personal life. What happens in your personal life spills into your work life. So my, not having relationships. Marcel had a really, and he'll share with you, a really horrible experience happen. And we were at dinner one day, and we had a glass of wine or two. We were getting a little too real, and
I put on my condescending, holier than thou, mightier than you hat, and I said,
"Say it."
I said I forgave the guy that murdered my brother. Why can't you forgive your parents?
Yeah.
And I get emotional because I guess I've said that 1,000 times now, and I didn't tear up once, but I guess it's because
in context,
it's because I feel I'm living my life purpose.
Yeah.
And that's why these are tears of joy.
They
so my oldest brother was like a father to me. We were extremely close. I mean, he taught me how to fish. Said this, I don't know why I'm getting upset now. I'm half forgiving the guy.
Well, because you're
I'm
in
just
that
happy.
you're in that place.
I'm happy that I can send love to my brother's murder. And it took me a long time, but really, it was very condescending. Again, she and I do a lot of work, but it was somewhat egotistical. Hey,
It was
I forgave the
totally.
guy that murdered her. Why can't you forgive your parents? She says, excuse me? Scooted her chair back, throw the wine in my face. She goes, that is so condescending.
No, actually, what I said to you was path of spiritualism.
You're sure. And so, but so
Nice, really nice, Buddha.
it's like, hey, I quit drinking. Why can't you? You know. And so I backed off. I never. But then coming back to the topic here, which is for think my throat's not slit, so I guess she did forgive me.
Oh, you don't know what I did. I actually took your toothbrush, washed the toilet bowl. No, I'm kidding. I'm
That's okay. I won't tell you what I did with your
Oh my
toothbrush.
God. Stop.
So-
That happened, and actually the next morning I looked at him. I mean, clearly understandable that I was kind of a little bent, and I looked at him and said, seriously, you're gonna judge my forgiveness? That's a personal journey. You have no idea what's gone on in all of my years.
In your own time.
And you were amazing as well. You looked at me and you said, this was really important too, because when he said this to me, it resonated so deeply. We were having this conversation. He said, I just want you to feel the same peace that I feel
There you go.
through the forgiveness of my brother. And I said to you, and at that moment, and that's where you sort of dig deep and you get humble. Saying to me, look, I know I said that. This is why I said it. It came from a place of love. It came out like a total. Really, I just want you to be happy because I love you. And that meant so much to me. I mean, the fact that you cared, and to want that for me as well. And interestingly enough, a year later, by the way, I call it the Syntron Forgiveness Tour, because Marcel and I have been down to visit my parents for a year. We've eaten, we've gone to concerts, we've traveled. The best time, and it's been such a gift to have my best friend, my partner, the person who's on this relentless journey to joy and happiness and peace with me, sort of being that litmus test in the same way that I've been with him through the stuff that he's going through. I mean, we're both, like I said, it's not a destination. Forgiveness is kind of like that train, that rail, that Amtrak, like it stops at different points all the time, but the next day there's always a tune-up on that forgiveness, something new to forgive, even with yourself or whatever. Sure. And it's been such a gift to have for us to do this together. But my forgiveness of my parents has, by the way, I never looked for it. Like, I just didn't care. I was done. I'm that person that if it's done, it's done, it's buried. I never want to hear about it again. It doesn't matter.
I'm going to quote what you told me when I first met you. My parents are dead to me, is what you said. They're gone. I buried them in my mind. I'm going on, and it's you. And I'm like, wow. And
this girl's for real. Okay. I want to date that. I want to date crazy. So I'm not crazy, but
You said you're French, you're Cuban, you're Lebanese, and you said the French will make you a wonderful dinner. So the Cuban will make you a wonderful dinner. The French will romance you. But then the Lebanese, and she took her thumb, like it was a knife blade, and went,
ran it from
and I thought, okay, that's exciting.
Keep it moving. Keep it moving. But yeah, I think what people oversee or don't realize or don't know, check into a place where you've felt a wrong, you've gone to forgiveness, and then check into where you and the result of that forgiveness. And it's so powerful. I mean, for Marcel and I, it's created a deeper level of intimacy and relationship and knowing each other. It's just been really amazing. I mean, I never thought, and I've actually had some friends say to me that have known me for 30 years, and Cynthia, you just kind of seem lighter. And I can't put my finger on it. I can't say that like my entire world changed overnight and music played and it was epic and all this stuff. And there wasn't a moment, although where it really turned between my mom and I. But I will tell you that the gift that I've given to myself, that I've given to those around me, and that my mother has given to herself, and that we've given to those around us, has been unexpected and truly epic.
It has. I've been firsthand witness to that. And just so sparing all the lurid details of the bad past, her parents bought us ticket to a Pitbull concert, and they went. That was amazing. So, and
and on that note, we'll be right back.
Hey guys, I'm Steve Vitani, Brevard resident and realtor with RE/MAX Elite. I'm excited to announce my new, very own podcast show, Steve Talks 321. We are on Facebook Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, talking about the most current real estate trends, hot topics, as well as anything along the Space Coast in Brevard County. I'm excited to share all of the latest happenings throughout Brevard County and also to hear from you. Please like this page, Steve Talks 321, and share this page and podcast with your friends. Thanks a lot. I hope to hear from you guys soon.
Join us for the fresh, new For Your Best Self podcast with Drs. Anita Saluja and Rebecca Novo of Dermatology plus Plastic Surgery. We will reveal the facts about techniques, trends, products, and procedures to be your best self. The first and only podcast combining the synergy of aesthetic dermatology plus plastic surgery. Search For Your Best Self on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com. Space Coast Podcast. Talk hard!
Welcome back to Fight the Good Fight Club with Marcel and Cynthia, and we were talking about forgiveness. Okay, we've talked about my family. Marcel, you had some thoughts.
yeah. So regarding forgiveness, I guess if you look at it and think about it, there's two examples of my life. One is I feel that I have totally forgiven, and there's no going back. There's no waffling back and forth. And then there's another one that is an ongoing forgiveness. So I'd mentioned what happened to my oldest brother. In a nutshell, he was literally sitting at his kitchen table eating a hot dog, and this guy comes in and is robbing him. And then he had a girl with him, and the girl went in the back room, was trying to get what she could, and the girl heard the guy go, my brother say, "Don't point that gun at me," and then all of a sudden, boom, and so shot my brother, killed him. And so my brother was a really good guy. He lived in a rough neighborhood, but he was such a good guy that there were people around that heard what happened and knew who did it. So the cops started casing, and they caught the guy, bottom line. And they caught him drinking a beer going down the road. And they brought him in and said, "Oh, by the way, listen to this. And they were telling, and so they arrested him for murder. And so the trial date came up. They picked a trial and all that, but to cut to the chase, the guy was found guilty. He got a double life sentence plus 25 years. And one for burglary, 1 life sentence, 1 for murder, and 25 for arson. And, just the graphic details, I'm going to tell him. He tried to burn my brother's body to dispose of the evidence. My mother does not know that to this day. So you think I should hate the guy. So during the trial, it was in Jacksonville, Florida, my brother Mark Pope. So we're sitting there, and what I was selfishly happy about myself was I didn't want to cause a dramatic scene on, for the news where I leap out of the courtroom and grab the guy, you murdered my brother. And I didn't feel any of that. And I think it was a lot because I'd been pursuing, peace within for a long time. And I actually felt bad for him. But the reason and I guess this is a key point in forgiveness, it was easier for me to forgive the guy that murdered my brother than my sister's husband, and for the things he had done to my family. So here's how I was able to forgive my brother's murderer. In the courtroom, after it was done, I was looking at this kid's family. When the verdict came out, I saw them weeping. I thought, oh my God, they lost someone too. And in fact, my one brother from another mother killed my brother. And so I went up to their family. I said, I'm so sorry. We were crying and hugging, saying, I'm so sorry, and they said, we're sorry he did what he did. And I said, so we kind of just, in that moment, forgiveness was done. And, a little while later, a few years later, I met this guy in business, and I kept saying, haven't we met at a conference or something? He's like, no, man. He goes, no, I didn't go to that conference or whatever. So we met for an hour. He left, and all of a sudden it dawned on me. He could have been the twin brother of the guy that killed my brother. And I was happy because it didn't trigger any negative emotions or anything. I wasn't feeling uncomfortable, So with that being said, I think about the guy, and so I'm going to talk about how to actually forgive. But before I do that, so I forgave him. And I send him, I think about him sometimes, a conversation. I send him love and I send him light. I hope he's doing okay. I don't wish bad things are happening to him while he's in prison. I hope that he finds peace within himself. In fact, I send it to him. I hope you're receiving this peace I'm sending you. Now, on the other hand, last year, roughly this time, I get a phone call from my mother, come get me. She lives in Jacksonville. So I went up there and got her. She came down to stay with me and has never left. She's 84. All of a sudden I hear all these horrible things that my brother-in-law has been doing to her, stealing from her possessions, stealing money, extorting money out of me, using her to do it. And she had some grave plots that she had 9. And he conned her into signing those over to her. And so of course, I'm angry at the guy, and I haven't been able to forgive him, so I've been trying to. So I thought also this show would help me forgive him. And so, and you're more apt to do something when you kind of throw it out there. You don't want to be a hypocrite. And preparing, there wasn't any really preparation for the show. I just thought of the topic I'd talk about, and it's really him. So in my heart, I have forgiven him for the things he did, even though I have asked him and my sister, just please give those grave plots back, return some of the things you took, and they don't even respond. They don't even acknowledge. They deny it, in fact. So I let it go because I realized holding on to that, like that heater in the room, you'd want it to be cool, but you don't want to turn off the heater. I'm turning off the heater. I'm letting it go. I'm forgiving them. Now I'm picturing him. So this is how I'm doing it. I say I'm doing it because I know I'm going to have a backslide or whatever. I'm sending him light. I'm sending him love. And this is how I did it. When I was about 12 years old, he and I were out in a canoe and the anchor got stuck. He told me to swim down it and unhang it. And I was only 12. Well, I swam down there. I thought, okay, he's making me do this. So I pick up the anchor. I think it was around 10 or 12 pounds. And I almost drowned, but I didn't let go of the anchor. I made it to the top and barely made it. I almost drowned. So I was holding that against him. See, other things besides what he did to my mother. So I thought, okay, I'm going to bundle everything up I'm holding against him into that anchor. And here's the key point of what I've learned about forgiveness. I confronted him. He completely forgot it. He didn't even remember. So that anchor has in it the things he did to my mother, the things he did to me, and I dropped it. And the anchor, I pictured it going to the deepest of depths, to oblivion, and I let it go. And now I'm sending him light, and I'm sending him love. And I know that it's probably going to recur, but honestly, I feel so much relief. And that's the topic. Giving is receiving. I want forgiveness. I want peace. And you only get it if you give it. And in my mind, I'm saying to him, look, I've been holding on to this anchor of grievances. It's not even affecting him probably. It's affecting me because I'm holding on to it.
That's right.
So I forgive him by letting it go, and letting it go, I have forgiven him is forgiving myself, and I let it go. So now if I think about him and I have a problem with it, I feel anger, I'm going, you know what? I dropped that anchor a long time ago, and I'm going to stick with it. And I know it's taken, I'm probably 90% more along forgiving him, closer to 100, I hope, by stating this and trying to share forgiveness and how to do it. Because I want to be rid of those feelings. I don't want them anymore. Because I know I want to be cool. I'm getting the heater out of the room. I'm not turning off. I'm getting rid of the heater altogether. So really, one was a permanent forgiveness already. The other one's a work in progress, and I feel relief. I don't want to hate him anymore. I don't want to be angry at him. And I know that he's probably still going to try to do some things. If he does, you know what? I forgive him already. And I don't want to even talk about my sister, who's right in there with him. So,
yeah, and I've done some forgiveness exercises also in some workshops that I did. And one of the things that they said, dovetailing into what you're saying, where you're dropping the anchor. They added on to that. I forgive you, and I set myself free from the things that are holding
awesome.
me back.
And that's what's happening.
Because that's
here.
what you're doing when
I'm
you're forgiving. You're setting
free.
yourself free, and it doesn't require the other person to say they're sorry.
There you go. Yes.
It doesn't require. I mean, when I went through that exercise of forgiveness with my mother, I really wasn't expecting anything from her.
Yeah.
The apology from her was a huge bonus. You have to, for me, not you, me, when I go into a thought of forgiving somebody and setting myself free from something that is really hurting me or bothering me or holding me back from accomplishing the things that I want to accomplish, it really is about my experience. If you are waiting, if you have expectations attached to it, if you're waiting for your brother's murder to say sorry, if you're waiting for your brother-in-law to say he's sorry, if you're waiting for that, you will wait till the cows come home.
That's it.
It's just, and your happiness and joy are not, should not, cannot be dependent on what someone else does.
So important.
Right?
Exactly. And that those, like I was mentioning in the beginning, everything that we ever need is within us. The moment we look for something outside of ourselves, or counting on someone to forgive us, or say it, or to say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right? So you have all the power within you to let it go. So it's not outside of you, it's in you. So the fact that I let that go, all was within me, independent of whether he says I'm sorry or acknowledges it, he's a non-factor in the whole thing.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, again, you give what you want. You get what you give.
Right.
And again, this is totally about the internal facets of us as spiritual beings.
Right.
So.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's really important. I know that it's been important for me to really sit down and be honest with what outcome serves you.
Yeah.
What do you want to accomplish? When I went into the forgiveness with my parents, my goal was to create an environment that was peaceful and healthy for my nephew. So it was just to be civil. So it was a small goal that would satisfy me, that I would be okay with, that was, so that I can move through this, and I would just let everything else go. And I think that that's the thing that really helped us. I'm really fortunate. I'm super, super fortunate. My mother and my father they've been through a lot also with their kids or whatever. And they're in a place now where they have everything anybody could ever want in their lives, but they want the love of their kids. And so we were all ready. We were all at that place where we were ready to do this. And interestingly enough, I wanted to bring this up real quick because we're going to wrap up soon. And Marcel and I wanted to touch on, we found an article that talked about 5 ways to tell if you have forgiven. And sometimes you don't know, because we were talking about this. It's like, how do I know if I've even forgiven this person? It's like, I'm not sure. So I went online, I started doing some research, and I found something that really felt right, and we'd like to share that with you. But just recently, a few weeks ago, something came up that was reminiscent of something that would ordinarily in the past send me through the roof and normally would cause me to just lock it down, shut it down, and end the relationship with my parents. So it was just one of those things that happen, because it's really important. People don't just stop doing, Scorpion is a scorpion, a frog is, people are who they are, and you really have to meet them where they are. So if you want to be in a relationship with them. So this situation came up. It caused a little bit of grief between Marcel and I. He checked in on he made clear what he needed. I made clear what I needed. I took some time. I stepped back and I thought about, what do I want to accomplish? What do I need? What does this grievance really mean in the scheme of things? So I didn't act rashly. I didn't, make phone calls. I didn't yell, hop up and down, scream. Yell. I was angry, by the way. I was like punching a pillow. I was fit to be tied. I was so mad. I can't believe we've gone through all this and now this happened. This is over. I'm going to shut this down. We're not going to have a relationship. I mean, I went all up in my Cuban female woman self. So, but, I felt my feelings, and then I settled down, and then I really thought about, okay, what does this really mean in the context of my life, in the context of all of our lives? And Marcel and I spoke, and we came to agreement on how we were going to handle it. And I'm very happy to say that not only did it work out, the outcome was even better. And we're so good. And for me, that tells me that I've really learned how to let that go, and that my relationship and my happiness and my joy and the people that I love, their happiness and their joy is much more important to me than holding a grudge. That means nothing, and it's just pain, right?
Correct. So, and another key concept here is about forgiveness. Sometimes if you remove yourself from the equation, and I said to Cynthia, you and your mother probably are identical. I bet the things that have happened to you probably happened to her, and then she projected them onto you. So I've always believed this.
I believe that too.
Hurting people hurt
for sure.
Inside, and then as a consequence, they hurt others.
Yeah.
So you're just passing along the hurt until you realize what you're doing and become aware of what's happening. And I think it becomes at a place to where, okay, I'm losing, forgive, I guess it's okay to say this, but at some point you had said to your mother, is it okay if we just move forward and go on, without saying specifically? So at any rate.
Just generally, I had a feeling. I had a feeling that something that had happened to me as a child had also happened to my mother, and I asked her, and she said yes, and that was actually the starting point of our having conversations. I was right in my assumption, and we had a common hurt. Right? Because we're all human beings. My mother and I had a common hurt. And when I told her that I believed her and that I supported her and that I was sorry that happened to her in the same way that it happened to me, and she said she was sorry as well, it gave us a common ground to start from. Absolutely. And it was a seed. Yes. And it was pretty amazing. It was that first conversation. And
into not even your defense, but I can tell you that I see you have forgiven them.
Yeah.
Because if we see like a residual action from them that may seem like who they were, we laugh about it. We laugh.
Oh my gosh. And that is a great segue, Marcel.
Because we know who they are. So yeah.
Exactly. And you're true. You're right. And that's actually a great segue to this article. So we want to, every episode, we'd like to leave somebody with something that we use to help us sort of get further along on our path, right? So we found this article on idisciple.org, and basically it's 5 ways to check in with yourself and recognize if you truly have forgiven. And in reading these, they made so much sense, and I thought that they were great starting points. Yeah. So if and I'll just say for myself, if I feel that I've forgiven someone and I'm not exactly sure, like before we started the podcast, I actually said to Marcel, I think that there's a forgiveness that I've done, but I'm not really exactly sure, because this is someone that I don't have in my life, that I don't want to have in my life. But I'm not, I want to make sure. So I'm using this as a litmus test, to know that, to see if I need more work to do or if I'm really in a good place with that. So the first one is, when the first thought you have about them is not the injury they caused in your life. So when you think about this person and the first thing that you think about isn't the injury, and you don't go into it like it's a movie on blast, like when Marcel said that he met this gentleman who looked just like his brother's murderer, and it didn't even occur to him because he just has let that go, right?
Correct.
The second one, ask yourself, would you help them if you knew that they were in trouble and you had the ability? That's powerful.
That is powerful. Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, I've heard myself say, if they were, run over on the side of the road, would I go pick them up? No. Yeah, that might require some forgiveness. Or if they're in jail at 2:00 in the morning and called you, would you come get them? Would you come pick up that person who you consider is your greatest enemy? The third one, can you think positive thoughts about that person?
Send them light, send them love. Yes.
Send them light, send them love. Number 4 of 5, do you still think of getting even with that person?
That's a good one.
That's one, yeah. Are you waiting for them to say they're sorry? Are you waiting for the next shoe to drop?
Yeah. Do you hope something bad happens to them? Which you don't want that, because that's not part of love. You don't wish bad things on people if you're coming from a place of love.
Exactly, and that's number 5. Yeah. When you have stopped, not wearing my glasses, when you have stopped looking for them to fail. Are you looking for them to fail? Are you looking for revenge? And these are, when I was reading these and talking to Marcel about it, I thought, what a great place to stop. So, I know for myself, I definitely am going to go back and have that moment of meditative, that 5 minutes in the morning, or maybe at the end of the night, maybe before or after you think about gratitude in your life. Maybe think about, check in with different parts in your life. Check in on the thoughts that you've had. Are you thinking about this person or this situation a lot? I think the first part of change in any form is becoming aware. Mm-hmm.
Aware of your feelings, really, as corny as that may sound, but really you need to know what you're feeling inside and why. Become aware of that.
Exactly.
And then, do you want those feelings? Then you say, how do I get rid of them? And that's where the answers start coming from within yourself. Everybody knows this stuff, I think. It's so hard to live it, though.
Yeah. And I think that, that's kind of what's part of this this podcast, when you're ready to get real and get deep and get humble, because we were ready to be happy.
Yeah. Peace.
Ready to wake up happy and go to sleep happy.
Yep.
And full of love and joy.
Yep. Live for now. Forget the shame, guilt, regrets of the past. No fear, anxiety or worry of the future. Be happy now. Yeah.
Yep. I think that's our show for today.
Wonderful.
Excellent. So if you'd like to participate in the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Try and look us up, Fight the Good Fight Club on Facebook. And we'll see you next time. I'm Cynthia Cintron.
And I'm Marcel Pope.
And this is Fight the Good Fight Club.